Hi, my name is Zen, and I like Rayman. The game franchise is something I hold dear to me, and it's something I see too few people talk about. The games are charming, funny, every single bit of whimsical, and the world building's insane. I love me a good world. And I'm not the first person to say this. Many people have already talked about the Rayman games to death. Whether it be Rayman 3, Legends, the first, somebody had said something about it all. Except one. Rayman Origins was published in 2011 and the fourth game in the main line of Rayman games. It's charming, funny, every single bit of whimsical, and the world building's insane. It was also the first Rayman game after the Rabbids took over and Michel Ancel returned since his work on Rayman 2. So, why does nobody talk about it? 'Cause it's a soft reboot. Yeah, many Ray fans weren't too keen about Origins basically retconning a lot of the stuff from the trilogy. Rayman's past changed, there's a bunch of new characters that are super important now, and the fan favorites like Lee, Clark, the Canarins, the Teensy Doctors, and, Tilly were also never to be seen again. It wasn't just the characters, it went back to Rayman's 2D platforming Origins, which was a jump scare considering most of, if not all, the recent games were 3D, which in concept isn't a bad thing, but people love to complain. It doesn't help that it was advertised as a sequel, constantly being called a real sequel, but ended up low-key rebooting the Rayman franchise despite what it claims, but more on that later. So what? It's a little clickbaity, but I bet this was always the plan, right?
Fuck you,
said my teacher, whose was actually the fuck you got.
Development for Rayman Origins began in 2008, 5 years after the release of Rayman 3. It was originally going to be a prequel, but then it wasn't. Then why is it called Rayman Origins? Huh? Did Ubisoft just want to have a laugh? Oh, it's called Origins because the game is still focused on his backstory. Somehow. And the gameplay style and the worlds are cutbacks to the original game.
Which is why I thought it was called Origins.
The closest we had to the vision of the original game was from the E3 trailers, with the life system and the multiple use for Rayman's helicopter, also something about the players turning into ghosts when they died, which feels like something out of Splunky, and would probably be a way better decision in the long run. Going back to the constant throwbacks to the first game, Mr. Dark was going to make an appearance. Yeah, the big bad villain who just watched Rayman complete the levels and forced him to 100% complete the game before he could fight him. The definition of a villain. However, that was early development, and he was later replaced with a bumbling, boogieing buffoon. Mansay, we are not done talking about you. With the origins of Origins out of the way, let's get into the story. There is none.
Some of you may die, but it's a sacrifice I am willing to make.
Origins is a weird game when it comes to plot, with no voice lines besides an occasional quip from the Bubble Dreamer, a cheer from the Nymphs, or a skill issue from Mansay. Origins was never a dialogue-focused game. Okay, that's fine. You don't always need dialogue to tell a story. Look at Little Nightmares. Nothing was said, and yet it tells a really compelling narrative about greed, gluttony, and the cycle of trauma. Yeah, Origins doesn't even have that. Origins is about 4 dudes taking a nap, accidentally pissing off their boomer neighbors squabbling about those damn kids because of their sick snoring beats, and bada bing bada boom, the glade is infested with nightmares. The nymphs are captured, Bubble Dreamer is suffering some serious brain damage, and Mr. Death lost all his teeth. Oh no! And everyone speaks Pig Latin. Raymanian? What's that? Yeah, all of this is shown, not told. I wouldn't even say shown nor told either. You find the nymphs captured on your own, Murphy is the doctor here, and I don't even know what's going on with Peepaw over there. The game is so all over the place with story and plot. And guess what? There's a plot too!
White boy who busts it down sexual style is not necessarily considered goated with the sauce.
Remember this guy, the teensy, the oh look at that tattoo guy? Yeah, his name is Alice Mansay, Pig Latin for salesman. And he's the main villain. And yes, he's so important he gets his own section. He has his own origin, story, motives, and plan that's just there. I know he's the magician or whatever, but I honestly thought that was debunked when he took the star sticker off his hat. As I said before, Origins has a plot. The issue is that they're just pieces, bits and pieces for psychos like me to squish together and normies like you to read the wiki on. The lore of Mansay is as follows, according to the game demo. He was picked on as a kid in magic school and admired Mr. Dark because he was cool and edgy. He also despised the Bubble Dreamer because he would sit on his ass all day while the glade got eaten alive by nightmares. A reasonable crash out. He planted a microphone flower by the resting grounds of our heroes, which can still be seen in game, implying that this is canon in some way and caused a war between nightmares and dreams. overkill much? Maybe. But that's not even the end of his plan. The reason why Rayman, or the player, collects lums and trades them for Electoons is because of a deal between Mansay and the player, and the reason why they want Electoons because it's the only way to recover the Bubble Dreamer's serious brain damage. I will give Origins credit on this. At least there's actually some exposition why. Electoons from Murphy's Yatfest at the beginning, which you could never look at again, and lums from Mansay's lore dumps from jumping on his hat. Yes, both of these could easily be looked over, especially Alice's hat sections. I know I did. But at least it's there. And that's Origin's whole thing. It's there. Not in your face, but not in the subsections of the game manual, which we will get to. But back to the main plotline. After saving all the nymphs, heading to Moody Clouds to see the Dreamer's portal is closed, and beating up the 4 kings because violence is the answer, you're finally allowed into the final world of the game, Moody Clouds. Here, you see Alice's plan come together. In one of the beginning levels of the game, he talks about the power of lums to people who know how to use them, and he does, by giant robots. Yep, Mansay's whole plan was to trick the heroes into doing his dirty work by snatching Electoons and swindling them for lums to power his giant mechas based off of the kings and destroy the Glade. Also, he's bald! And he can bust a move. After a needlessly complicated chase hocus pocus, I think I have a skill issue. One of the livid stones smacks their butt at you, and the core of the flying city explodes, leaving the heroes back where they started. And that's Origins! Confusing? Well, not really. Just lots of reading between the lines. But the issue is that none of this is explained, and if it is, it's extremely different from the original lore of the games, which leads into a big issue.
Okay, so it turns out that the second stand, the stand that we know, was actually Stanley, but the...
I own this game physically, despite owning it digitally. Shut up, I have like 3 copies of Rayman 2 and Legends. A big reason why I go out and buy the games to hold in my hands is because, well, they're cool. But also, for this. I own so many physical discs just for this baby. I love game manuals, I love lore, I love Rayman, and manuals give me enough of everything. They also give you enough of everything, sort of speak. Yeah, this talks about the story, which never mentions Alice at all, a few of the characters, and a bit of the additional gameplay mechanics and quirks. And the story in the manual is literally just, the Glade is cooked again, and now Rayman has to fix it or else the world will disappear. Pretty simple. But I do think the real story was the cut story that is still visible in the game, though small. But to keep it short and sweet, I'll only go over the retconning, which is mostly over the characters. The Bubble Dreamer, or Pelocus in Rayman 2, is the god and creator of the Glade of Dreams. He also had a wife at one time? Not sure what's going on there. The biggest difference was the design change. I personally think it was a glow-up. Now he's not bald. But besides that, Pelocus stayed the same personality-wise. Mostly. He's more involved, but not really. At least he's hanging out with his kids now. Glowbox was another character that changed slightly. I noticed they leaned more towards Rayman 3 Glowbox than Rayman 2 Glowbox. But to be fair, this whole game did, mentioning his love for plum juice and napping, but everything about him was changed. Now, he was originally a red wizard that got walloped by a small bug, turning him into a blue wizard. Also, he is a certified goober. How about the teensies? These little wizards were staples at filling up background space and being the guys you need to save. It's a simple concept, and you'd be right. The teensies probably got it the best besides the lums. Sorta. The only things added were the fact that they were fashionistas who slayed at magic. Go Kings. Now Murphy, everyone's favorite fly they either want to smack with an electric fly swatter or make out sloppy style. What happened to him? For starters, he doesn't even get a bio in the manual. I guess the rivalry continues even after Rayman 3. And also, he does basically nothing. The fucking Swingman gets a bio. That guy! I didn't even know he was called Swingman before I looked at the guide. Thank you, Legends, for making the literal guide in the game helpful in his own weird way. But in Origins, he's just there. He talks once or twice after collecting a certain amount of Electoons, or just in the beginning. It makes sense why they didn't bother to give him a bio, but that's not even the thing I care about. It's this! When I was a kid, I got this damn message all the time. It was so annoying, because this game is easy. There is no punishment for dying. Why would I want to restart the whole ass level? Because I keep missing a damn skull coin. I hate this message. I hate you, Murphy. You killed my grandma. Okay, I'm calm. I'm at peace. Let's talk about characters I actually like now. The the Lums got a bigger focus as well, with them being the main collectible besides Electoons. Well, they're called Looms now, as in illumination, which is like, okay, that's creative, but they've been called Lums for the past few games. It's a bit silly to change it to something I even forget sometimes. But, for the respect of the manual, I will call them Looms from now on. Though, speaking of the previous games, these yellow guys created the whole world, yeah? Created God? Yeah, but also they're collected like trinkets in a glade-wide sport called Loom Racing. Sure, like these guys could understand what's going on. Ignoring the questionable morals of running around and picking up guys who are asleep 75% of the time, the Looms stayed mostly the same. They got a name change, became more abundant, and all around more whimsical. But seeing this game, who didn't? Well, okay. Glowbox, the Bubble Dreamer, the Looms, nor the Teensies were that poorly changed. I'm sure that's the worst of it.
Oh my goodness! Squidward!
Yeah, I think Batella and Rayman got the short end of the stick here, at least comparing them to their Rayman 1 counterparts, which was the biggest inspiration for this game. Let's start by a side-by-side comparison. Rayman looks fine, a bit taller, a bit sharper, maybe a bit older depending on your headcanon, but in total he's A-okay. Now what about the creator? Oh! Going for a new style there. Cool. Heard the glade could get humid. Nice to get your vitamin D in. I'll talk about this more in the next section, but these two are completely different, and I'm not the only one who thinks that way. But with the fandom out of view temporarily, let's stick with the games. We'll use the last time they cameoed and actually did things. In Rayman 3, Rayman was a snarky and passionate, and maybe a bit arrogant hero just trying to save the world. He didn't talk much, more of the occasional quip or combat fatigue, but he still had character. Not a lot, but if you're insane like me, then you can see it. How about Rayman Origins? Well, he's happy, likes punching things, sleeps with the homies, saves pretty ladies. The issue with Origins is the lack of characterization, but that's the issue with a lack of story. But wait, the menu— It's his backstory. Okay, Rayman 3 doesn't really have an origin for Rayman, but I know Rayman 2 does. Let's see that. In the guide of Rayman 2, which I also own, twice, it says that Rayman just showed up on an island after a massive storm, freaked out the local teensies and creatures, then beat up Mr. Dark and made himself a name. Simple? Yes. Does it raise a few questions? What involving Rayman doesn't? For Rayman Origins, Batella and her sisters gathered around to create a hero to save the glade from the Bubble Dreamer's first nightmare. I'm assuming it's Jano, but it was never specified, and Origins loves doing its homework. On their way to the creation ground, which can be seen in the level Swinging Caves according to the E3 trailer, they got distracted by a zombie chicken, chased that bad boy to a cliff, and lost almost all their Lums, so they arrived late with a lot less light, creating Rayman with no arms, no legs, but huge features. Also, Rayman had a wife and was originally bald. Go figure. The stories contradict, with one just having Rayman pop in and beat up a dark sorcerer, and the other purposely being created to take down Jano. Could you find a way to make it work? I did, but that's another story. Let's go into Rayman's creator herself. Batella and the rest of her sisters are a spicy topic to talk about. Who would have guessed? Just look at them. However, this section is about the characters in Rayman 1, and the rest of their sisters do not appear in Rayman 1. I will be talking about solely Batella, but keep the rest of the family in the back of your mind. Rayman 1 Batella was your typical guide and mentor, giving Rayman new powers when he finds her, spending her time gardening, and getting kidnapped by the big bad villain. Everything you would expect in a female character. For legal reasons, that was a joke. Origins Batella is part of the Bodacious Nymphs, and is the benevolent yet badass eldest nymph. Keep in mind, every time they mention the nymphs, they refer to them as bodacious. Like Rayman, she has very little characterization in both the game and manual, so there's not much I can do with comparison despite their designs. They both give out powers, assist Rayman in the future, and get captured. It was pretty faithful to Rayman 1 Batella, personality-wise. And the Magician. I already know I talked about Mansay, so I'm going to keep this brief. No matter what the manual says, or what the wiki tells you, I don't think that Alice Mansay is the magician. They could be related, yes, but my opinion was that Mansay pretended to be the magician to gain the hero's trust quicker. That's why he's so chill about taking the star off during the reveal. Heck, I bet it's called The Reveal, to show that he's not the magician, not that he's a villain. But that's just me. Don't let my ideas impact your own. If you think they're the same person, more power to you. The manual calls him the magician, so what do I know? I'm just the guy who tells you what's going on. But personally, despite the elephant in the room, I don't see a big issue with him, Batella, nor Rayman. Personally. Honestly, I have no idea. Like I said before, people love complaining and reminiscing about the good old days. I like to lurk around fandoms, and the Rayman fandom is no different. From my observations on the various platforms, except Twitter, I have a few theories why people dislike or don't care much for Rayman Origins.
So where are all the bodacious Bigfoot babes?
As mentioned before, the change between Batilla and the addition of her son-loving sisters was a major turnoff to many of the OG fans. Constantly, I see people complain how much their designs suck, and many artists redesigns them because of their lack of protection. While Batilla's sisters don't nearly get as much conversation as Batilla herself, I do feel like I should bring it up. Also, the E3 trailer. Yeah, don't think I forgot about you. The trailer definitely dunked on Origin's reputation, with a very, very popular headcanon throughout the fandom being Batilla is Rayman's mom. This clip did not sit well. However, as mentioned before, Origins retcons many aspects of the games, so this doesn't sit super well when it comes to actual critique of the game. If they really were mother and son, then the mashed animation or the mad skit wouldn't have Rayman and Batilla wanting / already in a romantic relationship. Alas, a lot of fans think this way, and I can't do much to change that.
A Krusty Krab too.
Rayman Legends is the sequel to Origins that was released 2 years later. It uses the same mechanics, a more polished and storybook-like art style, and has way more content than Origins ever will. With daily and weekly challenges, 5 worlds stuffed full of levels, and many collectibles, Legends has a lot, but that's not what I want to talk about. The existence of Back to Origins, a subsection in Legends, is why I see many people not really feel a need to play Origins. Why go buy the game when I have it right here with smoother controls and a prettier art style? Yes, I like Back to Origins as much as the next person, but there's also some problems with it. Legends drags it down by completely removing the story, making it even more episodic than the original. Mansay is gone, the nymphs are gone, and Murphy is gone. Thank Polocus. Also, half of the game is gone. They handpicked many of the levels in Origins, though it does have most of them. A lot of them are missing. At least they kept swinging caves.
What? We're flying to Philadelphia! Oh, hell no!
A lot of people are unhappy with the switch to UV art and the change back to 2D. Not everybody, but I heard enough to include this. With the previous 3 games being very story-driven, many were put off with the lack of story Origins has. It felt too kooky, too loose, too different. Which I found funny because Rayman 2 was in the same boat as Origins by shaking up the franchise with a new style, engine, and characters, and that game is praised, for better or for worse. This is probably the least likely out of the 3 theories, but I feel like it should be stated for those purists who think the franchise fell off the second Origins released. Kind of a jump, but it's the internet. Yeah, I fucking love this game. This is one of my favorite games ever. I know I sounded kind of really harsh with my criticism, issues, and general view of it, but that doesn't stop my love for this game. Even if I'm blinded by nostalgia because this is what introduced me and reintroduced me to the Rayman franchise, I still think it's a fantastic game. Sure, the gameplay can be clunky at times compared to Legends, the difficulty jumped with the Land of the Living Dead is bonkers, but it's still enjoyable. Also, despite what people say, I think this game has loads of replayability. For me, it's like Rayman 3. It's super easy to 100%, and it makes me want to play the game again and again and again. I just like games where I can do that, actually. And the level design is great! Unlike Legends, the game isn't always linear. You climb up and down, even if it's always to get to point B. Even the character designs and differences or trailers don't even bother me that much. It's clear that this game was a soft reboot, even if they won't admit it for marketing purposes. It's in its own UbiArt world, and I think more people should know that. My only personal issue with the game are kind of nitpicky, but most of this video is. A big issue I disliked was the inability to restart sections of the level. Luckily, this was fixed in Legends, but it was still a problem when I was 100%ing the game. Another thing that's probably a skill issue on my end are the mosquito levels. Now hear me out, they're fun. I like how they're included in both Origins and Back to Origins. However, these are so annoying, especially playing alone. I don't like the lack of control you have, especially with the constant moving screen. And don't get me started on the loom counters. Doing these are fine normally, but for these damn levels they're a pain. You need to collect basically everything and shoot everything just to barely make the counter. But like I said, this isn't an issue with the game. It's an issue with me, and I will wear that badge with pride. I can understand why people would look over this game, but I don't think it deserves to be looked over. Like all the other games, Origins brings its own charm and personality to the Rayman franchise, something all the mainline games do. Even if Rayman 3 is forever going to be my one and only, I know Origins revolutionized Rayman and the gaming industry as a whole, just like the greats that came before it. It shouldn't be ignored for its superior sequel or compared to its peak original. Origins should just be allowed to be Origins in the flesh, and we should enjoy that.